Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Friday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and yesterday a couple of stories broke. One of them was a free agent signing. The rival Philadelphia Phillies signed a potential Mets target, and that was the newsworthy item from yesterday. The other piece that I want to discuss is some comments that Omar Minaya made yesterday regarding a certain injury-prone Mets player. I'll talk about those two things on today's show. The first bit of news is that the Philadelphia Phillies have signed David Robertson to join their bullpen on a 2-year deal with I don't recall if it was a player option or a team option or if it was a mutual option or whatever, but there's a third-year option. I can't recall the type. But 2 years, $23 million, I think, was the guaranteed money. So more per year for Robertson than the Mets are paying Yoenis Cespedes, which, again, I think is a good sign on Brody's part to get out there and sign one of those high-end relievers. You could argue that maybe they signed the wrong one. I don't, we don't know. We've discussed that till we're blue in the face. Relievers are volatile enough that they fluctuate from year to year, and Familia and Robertson, frankly, aren't any different. So that said, though, Robertson does have a track record of success. This will be his first foray into the National League. He's always pitched in the American League. But, he made it pretty clear that he wanted to stay on the East Coast. And while he didn't publicly say it, I think a lot of the decision for Robertson to sign with the Phillies was to ensure that he'll at least get opportunities to close games several times a week. And the Mets really have, talking about Robertson as a fit for the Mets really have two bodies in front of him before he gets the ninth inning. That would be Diaz and Familia. So I don't know that this was ever a realistic option for Robertson. And again, I'm assuming that he wanted to be able to close. I don't know that that's true, but to me it makes sense that he would want to sign somewhere where at least he had the opportunity. The Phillies have that Sir Anthony fella, who I think is one of the best names ever, by the way, Sir Anthony, as opposed to Sir Mix-a-Lot. But Sir Anthony is likely to be the closer for the Phillies, but he's young. He'll probably have a short leash. And again, I think it just makes a lot of sense for the Phillies to have gone out and signed Robertson, because he'll be able to teach Sir Anthony. That's a first name too, by the way. I can't think of his last name, so that's why I keep saying Sir Anthony. But anyway, Robertson to the Phillies, good signing for them. The Mets still need to do some work in their bullpen. There are still a lot of names available. So before everyone freaks out that the Mets aren't doing anything, let's just chill, okay? Let's not freak out. Let's let this offseason continue to unravel, and let's react to things as they happen as opposed to before anything happens, all right? And that leads me to the second portion of the topics today, and that is Omar Minaya's comments about Yoenis Cespedes. So yesterday it was reported that Omar Minaya said that anything we, meaning the Mets, get from Cespedes in 2019 will be, quote, gravy, or will be gravy, right? And I can see how on the surface that seems like a really negative quote, but I think it's reality that despite his being injured, the track record that Cespedes has with the Mets has been this. If he's on the field, generally speaking, he is producing. So this thought process that he's just going to be a warm body that they're going to plug in out there, I can't get into that, because Cespedes has yet to prove that he's washed up. Now look, he's coming off of two major surgeries to his legs, to his knees, but we don't know how he's going to respond to that, how he's going to bounce back from it. He'll have been off of baseball for almost a full year before he's able to sort of pick up the bat and glove again and start to get back out there. So the conversation about Cespedes being a, quote, trade deadline piece, a trade deadline acquisition, I don't think it's that far off, but I also don't think that the Mets can count on Cespedes for anything. And that's why the Mets need to continue to turn their attention to finding a legitimate fourth outfielder who will be okay being a fourth outfielder. And so the discussions about Adam Jones earlier in the offseason and over the winter, I don't know that Adam Jones is going to be a fit because unless he's willing to sign a one-year deal, which I don't know that Adam Jones is going to be willing to do, and it's also why I don't think A.J. Pollock is a really great fit. The Mets do have to assume that at some point in time, Cespedes is going to come back, and the Mets have him under contract for the next 2 years. So what are they going to do with the $25 million they owe to Cespedes? Let him sit on the bench in favor of A.J. Pollock because they signed him to a big contract too? That's the sort of chess game that the Mets have to play here as they look to fill these roster spots. You can't have a superstar at every position. I say that all the time. And it doesn't mean your team's not going to be good. I mean, look, the Yankees have had superstars at every position for years and years and years, and they haven't won a World Series since 2009. So, and look, I know that they started rebuilding with, their farm system 2 years ago, and they came out of nowhere and surprised everybody, and then they added to it with Stanton, and they're going to probably add to it with Machado this offseason. It doesn't mean anything. Baseball is so funny like that because it doesn't matter how many superstars you have on your team. It's a true team sport. And if you've got one superstar, I mean, look at Machado. Machado was in Baltimore for how many years? He's a fantastic player. I don't want anything to do with him, but that's my personality and my personal opinion, rather, more than anything else. But he's a fantastic player. How did his presence in Baltimore help that team do anything? I mean, they didn't. Bryce Harper was in the Nationals, was with the Nationals for the last 5-6 years. How many World Series did they win? How many playoff series did they win? It's a goose egg. So, baseball is one of those team sports where it could just be a matter of finding the right mix, finding that right chemistry on a team. The Astros are a great example of that, where they had a mix of young kids and veterans, and they just gelled together. This Red Sox crop right now, these are not hired guns on this Red Sox team. These were all, most of them were Red Sox developed players. If you pulled Mookie Betts out of the Red Sox lineup, yes, it would hurt them, but they're complete enough that they'd be fine. They don't need to have Bryce Harper to replace Mookie Betts. They could replace him with a guy like, just using a Mets example, a guy like Juan Lagares, who's a great complementary player, but can't be relied upon to be the cleanup hitter in the lineup or the leadoff hitter in the lineup. But he can do just fine as the seventh hitter, or perhaps even the eighth hitter in the lineup. That's what I'm sort of talking about here, and that's the sort of chess match, as I was saying, that the Mets are trying to figure out here. Which pieces are going to make the most sense, not just for this year, but going forward as well. And I'm on the fence. Okay, so full disclosure, I really want to give Juan Lagares a shot. I really want to see Lagares be the opening day center fielder. This is not because I don't want the Mets to spend money. It is not because I think the Wilpons won't spend money, although they probably won't. But I just want to see Lagares get a chance. I really felt like, despite it only being like a month last season, or not even, I felt like Lagares had turned a corner offensively. He seemed to be making harder contact. He seemed to be driving the ball a little bit. And look, I mean, if he can provide a 260, 265 batting average lower in the order, if he can get you some doubles as batting out of the seventh or even the eighth spot in the lineup, he might be the kind of player that complements a team in a lineup not that differently than Jose Valentin did for the 2006 Mets. Of course, he's a different kind of player. He's not an old veteran, Lagares that being. I'm not saying that Jose Valentin and his fantastic mustache is or was old, but different kind of player, where he was sort of on the end of his career, and Lagares is on the end of his contract right now. And so it makes sense to me for the Mets to use the $9 million that they've got to pay Juan Lagares this season, use it on him, because guess what? he's a free agent after this season. And for all the talk about guys performing well in their walk years, well, this is Lagares' walk year. He's going to want to get another contract. And while his glove will certainly get him one, think about how much better that contract might be if he were actually given the opportunity to hit and he did it. So that's why I want to give Lagares the shot. I just feel like he's this is going to come out wrong because this is a Will Pondy thing to say, but he's owed too much money to just let him waste away on the bench and to sign a guy like AJ Pollock, who you're going to end up with a complete logjam when Cespedes returns anyway. And look, the bottom line here with Lagares is if he's able to sustain a decent first half, who's to say the Mets can't trade him at the deadline? I mean, who knows? There's just a lot of unknowns here, and I hate the idea of wasting Lagares on the bench to open the season. I think he's a perfectly fine center fielder, and you know, this talk about Jeff McNeil playing center field, I just don't like it. You have a center fielder on your roster, use him. So that's going to wrap it up for today. I really went off on a little tangent there on the end. I was thinking I'd be done in like 6 minutes, which would have been cool. But in any event, that'll wrap it up. As I said, I'll be back on Monday next week to recap any weekend news. And if there's no news, I'll probably just do a ramble like I just did today. So until then, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.